Hello, successful and soon-to-be successful traders. Chris Capri, Second Skies, Forex.com. So, new video here. For those of you, and a side bit of humor, that follow my Twitter feed, I just recently posted a video, or a tweet, of me saying that moment that you recorded a video for your students and realized the mic wasn't plugged in. That was this video. So this is actually the second time I'm doing this video. Sometimes I do some silly things, but it's good. I can laugh at them for sure. And as this one quote reminded me, there was a great quote I read. I was at the university, and there was this billboard. It was kind of like the quote of the day, and it said, "What was the quote?" It said, "Make sure you're able to make yourself laugh. Otherwise, you leave yourself at the mercy of everybody else." So I feel very fortunate that I can make myself laugh, sometimes at myself and at risk of myself. Yeah, this was one of those moments. So anyways, second time in here. This video is on the 5 major trading cycles you need to know. Probably don't know about them. And so I gave a brief portion of this lesson in the London seminar, and I felt like I needed to expand on it. There was just such a good response from it. People really got it. And I felt like, okay, I really need to expand on this lesson and what that really means, because there was more to unpack about it. So whether you know it or not, there are 5 major trading cycles that you're always activating, engaging, and operating within during your trading time. And these cycles create patterns of reinforcement and wiring in your brain, which are either positive and helpful, or neutral or negative and not helpful for your trading and your mindset, your self-image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by talking about the model of an improper trading cycle and versus a proper trading cycle. And we're going to kind of explain the differences in terms of what you experience, and so you can kind of see which one you're engaging more and which one you're not, and what that actually means for your mindset, for your brain, and your psychology. And then I'm going to talk about and expand this to the other cycles as well. So we'll create the base model and then we'll go from there. So let's talk about an improper trading. Okay, so an improper trading cycle is you enter into a trade and you experience stress or tension in one form or another. And it could be you're in a winning trade and you're up, a fair amount, but you haven't hit your final profit target yet. And all of a sudden the trade starts to pull back and some of those profits start to dwindle away. So you start to experience the stress of that. Like, oh shoot, maybe I won't make it to my target. Maybe I should just lock in profit now. So that could be one version of it. Another version of it is you're in a trade and it just doesn't go anywhere. It just sits there and it kind of chops between positive and negative, and you're wondering, okay, wait a minute. I thought this trade was going to, go running, and it hasn't done anything since I've gotten into it. So what's going on? And another version could be you enter the trade and it immediately goes negative, and so you're kind of wondering, what did I do wrong? And what's going on and all this and that. So these are just examples, but you enter a trade and you experience some sort of stress. And that can manifest in a lot of different ways. It can manifest in breathing gets faster, you feel a little more edgy, you're not really sure, you're worried, you're fearful or doubtful, any kind of emotions anything that's throwing you off track and not helping you be calm, relaxed, and focused. As you experience that stress, you activate a stress response if you experience it enough and don't do anything about it. So you activate a stress response. And that could be a fight or flight. That could be getting emotional about it. That could be getting fearful, greed. It could be any sort of stress response that either fully takes you out of the PFC, which is the prefrontal cortex, or takes you out of it enough to where you're not going to be able to make good trading decisions. And so you experience this stress response, and then what happens is that this response starts to create tension. And I've talked about all the ways that the tension can manifest. And if you experience this tension, and then from your next experiences, you have a desire to get out of the trade. You're sitting there going, shoot, I need to get out of this trade. I was up 150 pips. Now I'm only up 50. I can't end with a loss. There's no reason I should end with a loss after being up so much. This is stupid. It sucks. I should exit earlier. Whatever. And there is this desire to exit. And what's really happening at this point is now your cognitive, your mental, and your emotional energy is being consumed by your internal state of tension. In fact, all of it is being directed and redirected by this tension and fears and worries and doubts and all these things you're experiencing. What happens next is that, for example, maybe you're in a fair amount of profit. Maybe you're up 150 pips and you only had a 250 or 200 pip target. And now all of a sudden you're only up 100 and you decide, okay, you close the trade and you rationalize it. You say, well, oh, fuck it. I'm in a good profit anyways. I'm still walking away with plus 1 hour. It's better than losing money. So you experience this stress response. It creates tension. Now your energy, your internal energy, your mindset, your emotions, your cognitive energy, all this are being directed by this tension and stress. And you end up closing the trade before letting your trade plan or strategy play itself out, before the stop loss or take profits hit. And what happens is that there's a short-term relief. You no longer have to worry about the ambiguity of the trade. You don't have to worry about a winning trade becoming a loser, or a losing trade and losing all the, hitting the full stop loss, or waiting too long for the trade to play itself out. Whatever it is, there's a short-term relief in that, because now it's just done. It's just said. And what ends up happening is you sacrifice the long-term gain for the short-term relief. And really what you're sacrificing is you're building this improper skills and habits, and you're wiring these into the brain instead of wiring the proper skills and habits into the brain. And it all starts with the stress. It creates a stress response. The tension becomes eventually worse and worse. It's redirecting your mindset. It's becoming almost unbearable to the point where you say, I need to relieve this stress. You close it. There is that short-term relief of the stress, and you end up wiring into your brain improper skills and habits and the wrong thing into your mindset. So this is an improper trading cycle. Does that sound familiar? Anybody ever experienced this? Thing about it is that if you experience this enough, eventually this becomes the dominant neural network. This becomes your dominant way of relating to trades and managing trades on a mental or psychological or emotional level. And it doesn't help you build these habits that you need to over the long time or the long term. If you've done this enough times, then eventually the neural network will become so dominant that 90 out of 100 trades you'll be doing this. And only 10 times, or a very small percentage of times, will you be doing it the other way. Does this sound familiar to people? Based on this, does it make sense why you struggle with trading? So this is an improper trading cycle. Now let's get into an actual proper trading cycle and let's see the difference. You notice it's a lot less complex. You enter the trade, you experience the stress, same as before. But what happens is that you recognize the stress, you note it, and you accept it. And that could be through a method that you use to help reduce the stress, like meditation practice. These can be some of the methods from the ATM course that we use to help redirect our mindset and relax our mindset and deal with these things. So you experience the stress and you recognize it. Okay, I recognize that. I noted that you're there. I accept it, and I'm going to redirect this energy and my mindset towards proper trade management, towards doing what I had set out to do. And so what happens is that once you kind of get back on track, you end up managing the trade according to plan. Win, lose, break even, whatever, partial win, partial loss, whatever. The trade ends up getting closed properly. And what that does is it reinforces the correct skills, the correct mindset, and it really builds up your self-image. And you do these, you do all these things correctly, and it increases your confidence. Because you say, hey, you know what? I can sit there in the storm of the emotions and I can recognize what's going on. I'm going to redirect my mindset when I need to, And I'm going to manage things according to the way I planned it out. That increases confidence that you can sit there and experience all those things and still make the right choice. So now between the two, you can probably see which one you've been engaging more and what this does for your brain, what this does for your mindset, and how this affects you. Now, this is just one trading cycle. This is just on an individual trade. There are actually 4 other trading cycles that we experience, and I want to explain those real briefly. But this is the base model. So there's daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly, and I'll just briefly explain this. So the daily, if you think about what is a daily trade cycle, it has to do with how well you manage your trading day from before you actually sit down at your office chair in front of the charts. How do you prepare yourself? What's your pre-trading routine? Goes all the way through your trading decisions, and that's before the decision, during the decision, after the decision, and how you end the day. Do you review? Do you kind of close things out properly? That's a daily trading cycle. This becomes a part of, and it's a function of each individual trading cycle. There's a weekly trading cycle. It's just a longer version of the daily cycle, and it covers prep for the week. How well did you execute all of your daily trading cycles, and then your review for the week. The monthly trading cycle, same thing, larger version of the weekly and daily cycles. The yearly one's slightly different. It is a larger version of your monthly cycle, but there's a few things that are happening over a year that are different from a day or whatever. So differences in the yearly cycle is it should include some time off from trading that you use it to review, to refine, to revamp your process for the next year. It should include a training portion within that cycle so that you continue your ongoing professional development. And it should also contain a time period where you're off, where you are taking care of yourself. I think one of the differences between trading and, say, like sports is that, like, for example, you take football, American football, they have an on-season and an off-season. And that off-season is composed of different cycles. There's a time where they're just not doing anything. Their body needs to recover. There's a time where they're just kind of building their strength and conditioning up. There's a time where they're doing practice, preseason. There's all these different phases. Trading really doesn't have that. And I think that's one of the biggest problems. It's this ongoing marathon, this endless hamster wheel that you never get off of, other than these brief reprieves, called the holidays. And I don't think that's functional. I think you have to take off time for training. You have to take off time for review, refine, and revamping your process. You have to take time off for yourself. I personally take time off every year, several times a year, that some of it's for my health, some of it's for my mind. I go on retreats. Some of it's for my own personal training. Sometimes I need to take other types of trainings. I wish they were regular. Right now they're not, because that's just not how my life is set up. But if it was my ideal situation, they would be regular. And the closer you can get to building those things into your yearly cycle, the better. I just don't think the model of just trade all the time and then take like a couple weeks off in Christmas and a couple weeks off in summer and that's it work. I don't think that works. Traders aren't notorious for having healthy lifestyles, and I think that's part of it. We weren't meant to continually experience this much stress and have no downtimes. Everything else has downtimes. So that's the difference between the yearly cycle, but it's all based upon the root model of the individual cycle. And so with that being said, I'm hoping that this video kind of has been a nice reflection for you of how these little microcycles of an individual trade cycle has an impact. And there's all these other little microcycles going on for your daily and your weekly and your monthly and your yearly. All of these, if you think about it, the yearly cycle is just composed of all the monthly, the daily, and the individual trade cycles. There's going to be oscillations. There's no way it's going to be you're operating at peak performance all the time. Oscillations are part of the game, and that's understandable, and that's fine. But are you maintaining some sort of stability of a proper trading cycle, of a proper daily cycle, of a proper weekly cycle, of a proper monthly and yearly cycles? If not, well, then you need to take less time out. You need to take a little time out from actual trading and more time out making sure that everything around trading is being done well. You know, before you start your day, during your day, after your trading day, preparing for the week, preparing for the month, preparing for the year. All these things affect performance. There's a reason why athletes have pre-seasons and they train in the off season. They do all these things because they know it's all preparation. Most of the work a professional athlete does is preparation. The game time is actually, you know, they do that because they've done so much preparation to get there. They don't get to a professional level without doing a lot of preparation. And our game time is sitting in front of the charts and making trades, but there is a preparation time for us. And the less you do that, the less you're going to actually experience positive results while you're trading. And you have to redirect some of that energy towards your actual trading cycles. That's the individual trade cycles. That's pre, post, during, the whole thing. So I'm hoping that this was a lesson that really kind of reflects something back to you about what kind of trading cycle are you reinforcing or not reinforcing? What are you wiring into your brain or not wiring into your brain? And seeing how that's going to have an effect on your performance. So I'm looking forward to your comments on this. I'm looking forward to the aha moments you've had from this and what you've kind of learned from yourself about this. And so other than that, I look forward to hearing from you, and I will see you inside the course.